Now it's time for today's perspective, and for the first time today, a huge French multinational company and several of its former executives are to stand trial for financing terrorist organisations, this time during the war in Syria. Now, it's a scandal that has led the company Lafarge to being the first ever company in the world being charged with complicity in crimes against humanity. It's the Lafarge scandal. Lafarge, a French cement company, which is accused of making payments to the armed terrorist groups, the Islamic State group of Iraq and Levant, and the al-Nusra Front, both of whom operated in northern Syria. Now, those payments were made in 2013, 2024, allegedly made to protect Lafarge's newly constructed factory there from the terrorists. What happened, revealed by a French journalist, her reports were actually broadcast here on France 24, and following those revelations, the non-governmental organisation Sherpa and the European Centre for Constitutional and Human Rights and 11 former Syrian employees of Lafarge filed a complaint in 2016 against Lafarge, its Syrian subsidiary and its executives. That case coming to a head today. Well, with me here on set is Advocacy and Litigation Officer at Sherpa, Anna Kiefer, and Co-Director of the Institute for Legal Intervention, the ECCHR, Claire Tixier. Thanks very much for both of you for coming in and talking to us. Let's start with you then, Claire. I mean, in your words, just describe to us and to our international viewers who might not know the full details of this story, exactly what Lafarge was doing.
Thank you so much for having us. At a time where the Islamic State was committing atrocities that are even very painful to put names on, lapidation, crucifixion, crimes that amounted to crimes against humanity, the genocide against the Yazidi, plenty other crimes. In that time period in Syria, Lafarge allegedly financed these groups, the Islamic State, but also the al-Nusra Front and Ahrar al-Sham, for allegedly up to 5 million euros. Why? Simply to maintain their production going. They had just, I say just because in 2010 they started running a brand new, modern, the biggest cement factory in the entire Middle East region, in Jalabiyah, in northeast Syria. They started running it in 2010. But unfortunately, the country fell into the war shortly after. And while other multinationals chose to leave, Lafarge decided to stay really at all costs. It's really a story of a scandal of how a multinational can put its own private, economic, particular interests above any other consideration. And in this case, beyond the consideration of human rights, beyond the consideration of the risks that their employees were suffering to come to work, because you have to see that the Jalabiyah factory was in the middle of the desert. So to come to work, the employees had to commute hours through dangerous checkpoints and all. And so it was revealed that they financed terrorist groups through payments in security payments and through supplying, through purchase of raw materials.
And Anna, I mean, it's incredible, isn't it, that they managed to do this for quite some time before it was discovered and unearthed. And indeed, they could potentially even still be doing it had it not been for the journalists involved.
They had to stop, in fact, because in 2014, ISIS attacked the factory. That's when the production stopped. There was no evacuation plan for the employees who were left behind and had to evacuate on their own means with private vehicles, as they were warned by the Kurds that the ISIS group was coming closer. So that actually stopped the production. But the revelation of that journalist who investigated in 2016, based on also a investigation report by a Syrian journal, Zaman al-Wasl, was critical for us to then file the complaint with the Syrians in 2016. The journeys, there's been 9 years of proceedings now. There's been a long legal battle, and we are finally getting to a trial. It's a trial focusing on financing of terrorism, as you mentioned. There's also other offenses that have been allegedly committed by Lafarge, and Lafarge remains under investigation for complicity in crimes against humanity. which once again is historic as the first company in the world to be charged with this crime.
Of course, the argument that they came up with, it was the only way, I suppose, to protect their business, and that the payments were not directly to the terrorists, but just to protect their business. Is that not any kind of defense, do you think?
Absolutely not. The Supreme Court in this case did say that the commercial motive is different than a criminal intent. That had to do with complicity in crimes against humanity, but it is the same for financing of terrorism. You do not need to share the intention of your funds ending up committing a crime. You do not need to share, you not need to even know, in fact, that exactly this amount of money has served the perpetration of this particular act. You just need to know that you are transferring funds to an organization that is of a terrorist nature in this case.
Anna, give us your view. No defence for the company?
One of the defense we've heard now in the media is the allegedly implication of the French state. However, the judges here who sent Lafarge and its executive to trial, as well as the Syrian intermediaries, said that actually none of these defendants go as far as saying that the French state instructed Lafarge to stay, instructed them to pay terror groups. So it is more of a communication strategy than a legal one. Another strategy that's been raised by some of the defendants is to say that the payments were indirectly made through for an intermediary, first class, and that should not be counted as part of the financing of terrorism. Or regarding the intent, they say at this time we didn't know the nature of these groups. There hadn't been the Paris attacks, so we didn't know they were a terrorist group. But as Claire highlighted, there was already massacres, executions, and the genocide of the Yazidi in 2014. And during that exact time, the summer of 2014, we see in the investigation file that Lafarge was negotiating a new agreement with Daesh, with ISIS, to restart the production.
Anna, as Claire said a minute ago, talk a bit more about the human side of this. I mean, there was a moment, wasn't there, when Lafarge took out its foreign workers and just left its Syrian workers behind. I mean, is that any help in this situation?
So it seems they valued more some lives. As the foreign workers were evacuated back in 2012 when the first abductions happened. But since in the lapse of time between 2012 and 2014, we had at least around 20 abductions of employees of Lafarge, which shows the high risk that they were taking to just go to the factory. And indeed, during the evacuation by their own means of the employees in 2014, 2 of the workers were abducted by ISIS and only liberated a few weeks later.
And indeed, it's some of those Syrian workers who are now joining you to take this action. Tell us how they're involved.
They're involved as plaintiff in this case from the start, but after we filed the case back in 2016, 9 years ago, exactly in November, many of them more have joined, and there are now almost 200. And I think it is so significant to think that, because we don't just defend human rights, we don't just defend the law, we defend an equal application of human rights and the law, and this means no one is above the law. And this means it's important to hold powerful corporations to account. And in this trial, we have former employees of a huge multinational who risked their lives for this, who are putting these top executives and the company, one of the largest publicly traded company of France, on trial with our associations and thanks to the French justice system. So it is so significant that they're able to testify, and they will speak to. We just really hope that they will be able to also claim for remedy. That is one tricky aspect still in this case, because remedy and reparation still hasn't happened for any of those who suffered at the hands of either the Islamic State or Lafarge in this situation.
As you both said, it's more than 10 years ago now since this all happened. I mean, why do you feel it's important that this case goes ahead and that you're all involved in it?
As Claire mentioned, especially important for the Syrians who've been waiting for more than 10 years because the facts happened 2013, 2014, and haven't seen any reparation. We've seen that Lafarge in the US has paid a fine of 778 million, but none has gone to the Syrian employees who have been put their lives in danger. And the trial will be a critical moment for the voices of these employees to be heard. And I think also for the defendants, the executive, to hear the impact of their decisions that were taken maybe in Paris and see their impact on the lives of other humans back in a war in Syria, where their vulnerability was taken advantage of as they were basically left behind. Okay, I accept to risk my life by going to work because otherwise I will be fired, or I can't provide for my family any food. So we see that there was definitely a battle here that needs to be fought also in courts. We look forward to
just finally, without naming any other companies, I don't know if you will, but I mean, do you think this is a one-off case, or do you think there are other cases in the past which could and perhaps will be investigated in the future?
In relation to Syria or in general?
In general.
Because in general, while I like to say it is a scandal, sadly, it's not. It's not a scandal because it's not a one-off. It is a practice that we see repeatedly, unfortunately, happen. There's plenty of cases going on of Western corporations doing that. So no, we really hope, because the significance of this trial is also that it is against a multinational tried for crimes that took place through its subsidiary abroad. And that is a real game changer for corporate accountability in today's neoliberal capitalist system, where the biggest winners are corporations, and they do fuel human rights violations, which means they also have the power to prevent human rights violations. But with great power comes great responsibility. And we see that legislators, but also judges and the public opinion is ready to really hold multinationals to account for what they do.
Good to talk to you, both of you, today. Thanks very much for coming in and talking to us. Claire Tixier, co-director of the Institute for Legal Intervention, the ECCHR, and Anna Kiefer there from Sherpa. Thanks very much to both of you once again.